Good evening, TI communities. My name is Sara Perez-Klausner, and I am over here in Urban Palms in Houston, Texas. Today, I want to talk to you all about the ABCs of credit. Okay, credit really isn't as complicated as people think, but it is very important. A lot of people think that I need to make more money to build my credit, or I need to establish savings before I can build my credit. Or credit scores don't matter. I can just pay cash for everything. I don't want any credit cards. Believe it or not, these are not true statements, okay? So today we're going to talk about the ABCs of credit, credit scores, establishing credit, and maintaining good credit, okay? So first, let's make sure we understand what credit is. Credit basically is trust. It's a form of financial trust given to another person for future payment of a loan, credit card balance, or other things. Okay? A creditor is a person or a company to whom a debt is owed. Okay, so that's the person that you're paying. Okay, so we're going to go over the 5 C's of credit. We have C, which is capacity. We have the next C is capital. We have collateral, conditions, and character. Okay, so all these 5 C's of credit all have something to do with credit, and we're going to make sure to review these as we go along the presentation today. Okay, so first, what is a credit score? Okay. So it's a number that helps lenders predict how likely an individual is to repay a loan or make credit payments on time. A credit score is a number that changes as the elements in a credit score change. And we're going to talk about what are those elements. A credit score has broad use and impact. Okay, your credit past is your credit future. FICO scores are one of the most common credit scoring systems, and they vary between 350 and 850. So 350 is going to be on the lower end, 850 is going to be on the higher end. Vantage scores it's a newer credit scoring system, and that's developed by the 3 different credit bureaus. Okay, and that ranges from 501 to 990. So that's your lower end, 501, and the high end, 990. Those are things that as you are looking at your credit score, you'll see those names and you'll kind of understand what they are. They usually tend to be pretty close to each other, actually. And really it depends on what you're applying for, is whether or not they're looking at your FICO score or your Vantage score. So it's just good to kind of start familiarizing yourself with those terms, FICO score and Vantage score, but I wouldn't worry too much about the ins and outs of that yet. Let's just get a basic understanding of what credit is, okay? So I want to go back to this third point. A credit score has a broad use and impact. Your credit past is your credit future. Now, I don't want that statement to be a discouraging statement. Your credit past is your credit future, but you can do things to affect your credit future. The things that you're doing now is what's creating that credit past, right? So maybe your current past isn't that great. That's okay. Let's pay attention to what you can do, the small things that you can do to make changes now so that you can have a better credit future. Now, why do you want to have a credit future? It would be really interesting to see comments about why you might want to have a better credit future. But basically, a good credit score is going to help you with many things. You might be in a situation where because you have a lower credit score, you're paying higher fees or higher payments on your car insurance, for example. Maybe you apply for utilities and you have to pay a deposit. If you want to buy a car, you might have a higher interest rate if you don't have a great credit score. When you've applied to rent an apartment, maybe you had to pay a deposit. Maybe you don't want to always rent and want to eventually buy a house. Your credit score matters. Your credit score matters so that you can build assets and save more money. Okay. So those are the things that play a factor. So that's going to be your capacity, right? Your credit score is going to affect your capacity and your capital. You're going to have a lot more capital, a lot more funds if you have a better credit score because you're paying lower fees on those monthly payments. You're not having to pay those deposits, right? And that's going to give you a lot more capacity. Okay, so what makes up a typical credit score? So we just talked about how a credit score changes as the elements of a credit score change, right? So let's go ahead and look at these. I'm going to start right here on the top at types of credit. So types of credit in use. It says 10%. That makes up a total 10% of your credit score. What they're talking about with those types of credit is there's two major types of credit. There's revolving credit and installment. So actually, you wouldn't actually call it credit. You would call it a revolving loan or an installment loan. And so those are the things that mostly pop up on your credit report. Almost everything on your credit report is going to fall into one of those categories. And they want to see a little bit of both. Okay, so an installment loan is something that you're paying installments on. You're making those monthly payments, or maybe they're set up differently, whatever it is, but you have a total balance that you need to pay off. So an example might be a student loan, a car loan, maybe you took out a personal loan, a business loan. Okay, that's going to be those installment loans. So you have a grand total, and you'll eventually have it all paid off. A revolving loan is talking about credit cards. So credit cards show up on your credit report as revolving loans. This means that this is a consistent loan that's going to come in and go out, right? Revolving. It's going in that circle. And so that's a bill that, you might pay off, but it's always going to keep coming. It's always going to be there. It's going to stay. And they want to see a little bit of both. They want to have a little bit of diversity on the credit. Moving on to requests for new credit. Okay, 10%. That is also 10% of your credit score. So that's when you're applying. If you're applying for loans, you're applying for credit cards, you're kind of going, looking for a solution, or maybe you're just curious here, curious there, or want a couple credit cards for different stores. Those are the requests for new credit. Every time you have an inquiry on your credit report, that is something that is going to pop up on your credit report. That's why you should really be ready. So don't get curious about credit cards. That's why you'll hear, no, I don't want to apply for that credit card. My credit score will go down. Yeah, your credit score goes down when people are checking your credit because it's showing that you're inquiring about more credit. And if you're doing that a lot, sometimes you do have to do it. But if you're doing it a lot, it's kind of raises a red flag. Like, okay, is everything okay with that person? Now say you need to buy a car, right? Really think it through, talk about the different conditions that come with buying your car and whatever else is standard there, right? So talk about the interest rate, talk about what the inventory of the car. Don't just go around applying here, applying there, make sure you're really thinking about the decision. That might be a time where you might see 2 or 3 inquiries, but you want it to be closer to 2 or 3 as opposed to 5, 6, 7, 8, right? That's a much higher number. So definitely think everything through, and we'll be talking about that, what you should be asking, what you should be talking about there. Okay, 15% is your length of credit history. So maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to pay off my credit cards and then close them all. that might not necessarily be the greatest idea because your 15% of your credit score is the length of credit history. Okay. 15% is looking at how long you've had your credit accounts or your loan accounts open. So if you're constantly opening and closing credit cards, it's not necessarily going to look great. All right, so definitely keep that in mind. Next is your current total debt. Okay, what you actually owe, right? What's owed there? 30% is going to make up your credit score. But don't let that discourage you because these other things, the length of credit history, the requests for new credit, and the types of credit in use also together make 35%. So maybe you're not able to make as much of a dent as you'd like to in your total debt, right? I'll tell you, most of my debt is my student debt. About 80% of what shows up on my credit report is strictly from my student loans. And I can only do so much about that. So that 30% is something that is going to stay, in a not so great light right now on my credit report, particularly. So I'm paying attention to these other things. Do I have different types of credit? Am I requesting new credit often? No, let me stop doing that. Right? Let me make sure I'm not. And what is my length of credit history? So I'm trying to make sure that, it's really showing on my credit report that, well, I've had credit for this long and I'm maintaining this. So that's really going to help. And then back to 35%. This last portion here is your payment history. Your payment history, not just your credit history. So they're actually looking at, does this person pay their bills on time? I'll let you in on a little secret. When you pull someone's credit report, you do not look at how much was paid. Yes and no. It does show your current total debt. Okay, so if you have a credit card with a $300 balance and you're paying $10 a month, right? Okay, it's going to show that maybe that balance isn't getting knocked off that much. But what it'll also show is that you have a good payment history, assuming you're making those payments on time. So maybe your minimum payment is $25 a month for that $300 limit credit card. But you're paying $10 a month, but you're paying it on time. There's these little check marks that pop up on your credit report, and you're going to keep getting a check mark every time you make a payment, just because you're making a payment on time. Now, if you miss a payment, there's going to be a negative mark on there, 30 days late. Now, there's another one, 60 days late. Now, there's another one, 90 days late. Okay, I believe it goes all the way up to 120, and then it's going to keep going. So now it's going to say, oh, they have this many payments 30 days late, this many payments 60 days late. So even if you can't pay the whole thing, make that on-time payment. Keep those checks because those check marks are 35% of your credit score. That is the biggest percentage on here. So if you're making on-time payments, you're making sure that you have a diverse types of credit in use. You're not requesting for new credit often, and you have a long length of credit history, okay, or maybe not, but it's getting there, you're building it, whatever, you're going to be okay, even without having to make big payments on that current total debt because you're making these other great habits. Now, I'm not saying don't try to pay off your balances, but there are ways to really prioritize what should be getting paid, okay? Another thing that you can do is if you're finding that you have quite a bit of negative reports or negative items on your credit report, you can try to see how many of those you can get rid of by settling some of that debt. We'll go on to talk about that I believe there's a slide coming up, but I'll make sure to touch on that. So there are things you could do to reduce that current total debt. But there's quite a few things here. I would say payment history, types of credit use, and requests for new credit. That's 55% right there that you can do a lot of. Okay, and then that's only going to in turn help the other two categories. So we're going to be in good shape if you can pay attention to those smaller steps like making on-time payments. Okay, so going into how to improving your credit score, what did I say? Pay your bills on time. Okay, get current and stay current. Okay, so maybe it's going to take you some time, but if you're having a problem paying off that $300 credit card, you might want to consider putting it away until you pay off that balance. Okay, so get current and stay current. Don't try to don't continue to build your debt if you haven't been able to get current yet. Don't open a lot of new accounts too rapidly. Try to correct your mistakes. Shop for loan rates with a focused period of time. Okay, so kind of talking about making sure that you're being very intentional with your inquiries. Okay, so if you're applying for a car, really have that focused period of time, do your research. That's you shopping for loan rates. Keep balances low on revolving credit. So usually you want your credit to be below 30%, but you do want to make sure you're using those things a little bit so that, credit bureaus do want to see that your credit cards are being used. So it's always a good idea if you have a phone bill or a standard monthly bill that you can have programmed to be on auto pay from your credit card. And then if you could set up some auto pay from your checking account to make sure it's getting paid off that month, that'll really help you out. Which going on to the next one, pay off your debt. So if you're able to pay off those credit cards on a monthly basis, you're going to pay little or no credit or no interest at all. And then check your credit report. Okay. Use Credit Karma, Experian. I have both. I like Credit Karma better, personally. Experian has some good features as well, but they're free if you do the basic account. Credit Karma as well. The basic account is free. I find I get a bit more from the basic account. It's hard to understand Experian a bit personally. Okay, so those are just some examples. Sometimes your bank will do it. I'll go ahead and comment on this posting. If you are in Houston, I do have services available for you where I can get your credit report for free. Soft pull, it won't affect your credit score at all, and we can go over it and talk about it. Okay, so what are some types of credit? Okay, so we have cash credit, sales credit. All right, so cash, sales credit would be in the store. Secured credit is the type that if you have a secured credit card, you put a little bit of you put a deposit down, so it's kind of like your security, and that's how you get that credit card, and that's your promise to pay. And that's a solution if you don't have a great credit score, but you want to make sure you have a credit card so that you can improve your credit score and have that diversity on your credit report, right? Different types of loans. Going to the next one, revolving credit. So that secured credit card would still count as revolving credit, but they're talking about unsecured credit cards, just standard credit cards, okay? IOUs, you don't really hear that as much anymore, but that might be basically an agreement to pay something off. I owe you this much. We have single payment credit, so maybe that's just one major loan. Installment credit, so those are your bigger payments, like the student loans, car loans, right? So those big amounts that get paid off over a period of time. Another type of credit that I'm going to call it another type of credit, and it comes from your 5 C's of credit. That's the collateral. Okay, so collateral is something that you might use if, say, you don't have great credit, but if you have a car or you own a house and you really need to get some money, right? You could go ahead and use that as collateral to get some credit. Maybe you want a business loan, or maybe you need a personal loan. You could use your car or your house or whatever, expensive belongings you might have, your assets, as collateral. That's not really what you want to be able to have to do. You would rather have that good credit score so that you don't have to have that collateral, right? The next C on here, and just to go back, the secured credit card, that deposit could also be considered like some sort of collateral, right? You might not get it back, but it's a promise saying that, I'll pay this off. So another thing that's important with credit, and I'll just leave this here for now, is the conditions. Actually, okay. Sorry to do that to you. So conditions. So when you're talking to credit cards, you do want to know what is the minimum payment, what is the credit limit, what is the interest rate that you're gonna have for me. Sometimes they do want an annual fee. So you're gonna want to take that into consideration, review your budget, and see if it's really worth it for you to do this credit card. There's actually quite a lot of options out there. And like I said, I do have services available in Houston if you want to get connected with the right secured credit card for you. So over here, reviewing some sources of credit. Where would you get credit from? On one of the first slides, we talked about a creditor. So these are the examples of the creditor. These is who you are paying. So banks, retail stores, if you have a store credit card, savings and loans associations, internet stores, finance companies, and credit unions. So a lot of these bigger examples like credit unions, finance companies, right? The banks, those are the ones who are reviewing your applications for a loan, right? Or savings and loan associations. So they're going to go ahead and look at your credit score, look at that character, okay, and see if they want to move forward with you. So that brings me to my last C of character. So your credit score is kind of a form of your financial character. I'm not really too crazy about that last C. I want to be very clear. Your credit score does not determine whether or not you are a good or bad person, okay? Having a low credit score does not make you a bad person. It's talking about your financial character. It also doesn't mean that you're irresponsible, okay? Maybe you were. Maybe you have some time to make some better decisions and you need to figure out what the best financial decision for you is. But maybe you weren't that knowledgeable and that's why you were making those decisions. And I know for a fact that learning about how important payment history was, the fact that, wow, I just ignored those credit card payments and I could have paid $1 a month and that would have showed up as an on-time payment. I could have managed that. That's ridiculous that I didn't even try, So really understanding the importance of that payment history, 35% of that credit score, is really going to help you make those decisions and help you build that character and that credit score. So what are some other sources of credit? I'd love to see some comments, hear what you think about that. What sources of credit do you think you should be avoided and why? Let's ponder on that. Well, I know we definitely want to avoid credit with high interest rates. Something that I hear of a lot that can really put you in the danger zone is payday loans. Okay, payday loans tend to have like 600% interest rates, right, for you to pay back. And really, you might need that money right away, but the overall debt that it puts you in really is not worth it. So I definitely say that's one source of credit. Payday loans should be avoided. So some steps to avoid abusive lending. Think to yourself, have you shopped around for the best deal? Do you feel like the lender's pressuring you to take the loan? Do you understand the terms of the loan? Okay, really make sure that number 3 is the most important. And that goes with everything. Remember, when I'm talking loans, I'm talking car loans, house loans, personal loans, okay? I'm not just talking about actual cash in your hand. Having a car note is your installment loan. Signing up for your credit card, that's your revolving loan. So think about that. Have you shopped around for the best deal? Are you feeling pressured, and do you understand the terms of the loan? The conditions, right? Okay. Some questions to ask when applying, right? And really applying for credit and really thinking about that, the conditions again. So here's how you determine those. What is the annual fee? What is the annual percentage rate, the APR? When are payments due? What is the minimum payment required each month? Is there a grace period? Are there other fees associated with the credit, such as minimum finance charges? What is the credit limit? What are the penalties for late or missed payments? What are the terms and conditions of the credit? What else is included in the fine print? If you can't answer all these questions by the time you've decided to apply for that credit, then that's not a good sign. You should be able to answer all these questions and really understand them. If you have any specific questions about what these terms mean, just let me know. I'll definitely respond in the comments. Annual fee is going to be that fee that will be per year. So not all credit cards have those, but often they do, especially if you're needing a credit card to build your credit. The annual percentage rate is the yearly percentage rate, the percentage rate for the whole year. So if it's 10%, then that's going to be over the whole year, which means that it builds over a year. A certain percentage of that builds after each month. So if you're paying off your credit cards each month, you'll avoid paying any of that APR. You'll simply pay what you've put on the credit card. Okay. Minimum payment is going to be the least amount that you can pay. Grace period is when they give you a little bit of a couple days before, after the due date. Okay, so you might live in a complex right now that rent is due on the 1st. You have to make sure it's paid by the 3rd. That's a 2-day grace period. That's a good example of a 2-day grace period. The credit limit is the maximum, right? The most that you can put on the credit. So that's just a review of some. If there's something that you have more questions on, please ask me in the comments. Okay, so what do you do to maintain good credit? Let's talk a little bit about this debt to income thermometer, okay? So you want to look at your debt monthly, maybe what you're paying monthly or what you're about to pay monthly, and how much is it towards your income. So if it's 15% or less, you're in great shape, okay? So let's say if you are making $2,000 a month and you're paying I think 250 is about, I could be wrong there. I know 200 is 10%. Okay, so $300 would be 15% of $2,000. So if your debt is $300 or less each month, then you're in a great shape. Okay, and then it just kind of goes up in there. So 16 to 23%, pretty good. 24 to 38%, pretty good. This 39 to 50%, that's when it's high. And even higher than that, that's in the danger zone. So if you make $2,000 a month and your debt is taking $1,000 a month from you, that's a problem. Okay, that's your high debt. That's 50% of your income. That's a really high percentage. And so we really got to make sure that we can work on that and decrease that. So what do? Do you try to make more money? Do you negotiate some of your credit limit, your terms, right? Do you make sure that you're using your credit card less? Okay. There are various solutions, and you might not have the quick fix right away. That's okay. Just make sure you're making those on-time payments at least, okay? Okay. And this will be like kind of the last thing that we'll do. This is kind of the credit process. So they're going to look at your credit history and report it to the credit bureau. That's what shows up on your credit report, which in turn turns into your credit score and gives you that credit rating. So those different scores and kind of tells you the rating and, lets the lenders know what character we're dealing with. Okay, actually, I do have a couple more slides. I apologize. So, some warning signs of debt problems. And I think this is probably a whole nother presentation in itself. So maybe in a future presentation, we can talk a little bit more about um, fixing credit. So this is ABCs of credit. We'll have a future presentation on actually fixing credit, okay? So some warning signs are going to be delinquent payments. Those are those late payments. When you're not getting those check marks, there's other numbers that pop up, but those pop up as your delinquent payments. If you're getting default notices, if you have items getting repossessed, or you have things coming from collection agencies, that's going to be a problem. You might eventually, have some things that go to court. They might even wage your garnishes, right? Or excuse me, garnish your wages. So you never really know what might happen. So definitely start looking at those early warning signs, right? If you're getting notifications of delinquent payments, if you're getting default notices, let's talk there. Don't wait. Find out what you can do then right away. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today.